I remember thinking to myself, like, we may actually pull this off. Even though it was grim, it was still grim a lot of days after that, but I felt like we had a chance to pull it off. Very, very thin chance. I was on my way to work one morning, just like any other morning, right? And I get a call from our supplier, which is not unusual. And he told me that their plant in Texas had frozen over and that they were not going to be able to produce any material, that they were getting an inventory count on what they had, and they would let me know what they would be able to ship. So I hung up the phone, took a couple of deep breaths. I called Carrie, and I let Carrie know. Came to the office. I talked to my manager, who was Tracy, senior manager Carrie Barnes, and VP Kevin Hardy. And I told them what the supplier said to me on the phone, and they initially had the same reaction, but they saw the straight face that I had, and they realized it was real. So we immediately went into a conference room, got the supplier on the phone, and then we started doing the risk analysis for us. And then shortly after, I was tasked with finding material, reaching out to my connections in our network. We were in jeopardy of shutting lines down. And if that happens, there are major financial ramifications imposed by fines. Because some of these guys, some of these OEMs, they'll say it'll cost you 30 grand a minute if my line goes down. And we were able to deviate from the normal process because in automotive, you're bound by a lot of specs when it comes to the raw material that you use. But in this specific situations, we were able to look at some alternatives and get some alternatives approved pretty quickly. Maybe after a few days into it, I started to gain confidence. I mean, I kept it to myself though, because in some of these meetings, it's like, oh my gosh, there's one thing after another. But yeah, I began to feel like we may be able to pull this off. As we got wins, as we secured material and we got it on planes. I mean, there's still a lot of things that can happen after you get it on the plane, but it's kind of like huge exhale after I know that it's on the plane, then it's on to the next one. Luckily, we were able to get through it without shutting anybody down. And so we were in jeopardy with several suppliers, major OEMs, you know the names, you're probably driving one of their vehicles. They weren't performing very well. This is around the time that I transitioned over from raw material to a new position as one of the analysts that deals with our sub-suppliers. When your score falls below a certain threshold, then you make a list, which is the focus supplier list. And we have a couple of analysts. So it's the corporate supplier development team. It's two guys, Kevin Pitts and Justin Wisniewski. They are our auditors, and they are also very skilled in processing. So they had gone there and they'd raised the red flag. There were some other issues going on. So we went in, looked around a little bit, and in the midst of our investigation, there was a mysterious fire. When the fire happened, we had to pull our tools immediately. We told them that at this point, we were going to sever ties. We had a tough decision to make. So that conversation was tough, but we gained a mutual understanding. And I remember when the last truck left, and I turned to the logistics analyst. His name is Cliff Davis. And we kind of smiled, high-fived, and followed the truck out of the complex. As being the leader of the crisis management team, to me, not delivering is not an option. We saved the world, now what?